want to welcome you guys to today's session, how top operators are evolving and really, working to kind of address environmental compliance and maintenance programs kind of across their respective industries and organizations. And so today we've got Joe and Andrew with Jackson's Foods and Chestnut Petroleum that'll be co-hosting this session with myself. I'm Brent Puzak. I'm a solutions consultant for Titan Cloud Software. Been on the Titan side for the last 4.5 years. And really what I do with Titan is really help organizations understand and leverage the technologies that we offer to really solve high value business problems kind of across their industries. Been in the industry a little over 30 years total. The large majority of that on the retail side, where I've managed environmental compliance, maintenance, even done, been on the regulatory side in the past as well. So certainly look forward to today's webinar, and I'm going to pass it over to Andrew and then to Joe and let them introduce themselves as well. Andrew?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Marvin, environmental manager for Jackson Food Stores. I have a little over 10 years of experience in the industry. I used to be a compliance inspector, and then I also worked for a testing company briefly. Last 9 years I've been with Jackson's, starting out as an environmental compliance specialist and then working my way up to environmental manager in the last year.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. Joe?
Hey, Joe McCormick. I work for Chestnut Petroleum, Chestnut Market. 25 years in the industry, 13 with Chestnut Petroleum, and 12 as a consultant, doing cleanups, compliance. I'm a licensed professional geologist, a CSP, an OSHA approved trainer, and a UST licensed installer.
Perfect. Thanks, Joe. And thanks, guys. I know I thanked you guys earlier, but I know we can't thank you enough. It's always great to have an industry perspective on compliance and maintenance. And I think it's going to be a great resource for the people that are participating today to really understand how you guys, kind of the journey you guys have been on to leverage technology, both, where you've been, where you're at, and then where you see kind of the industry going in the foreseeable future. Andrew, I'm going to turn it over to you. And if you don't mind just sharing information about Jackson so that the webinar guests can kind of understand a little bit more about your company.
Yeah. So Jackson Food Stores, we started in 1975 by John Jackson, who is still the serving CEO of our company. And we started in Caldwell, Idaho with a single store. And we've grown that to basically over 300 stores in the 8 western states, Pacific Northwest. And we pretty much have grown pretty aggressively over the last several years since I started with the company. Nearly doubled in size since 2016 when I started. Our brands are primarily Jackson's, but we also go under the Extra Mile brand with our partnership with Chevron. Our field brands are primarily Shell and Chevron locations, but we do offer a few other brands in certain markets. And our mission's pretty simple. Basically, we want clean, well-lit stores, friendly service, very good products, and we feel like we definitely deliver on that to the customers.
Perfect. Thanks, Andrew. And Joe, if you mind sharing a little bit about the Chestnut Petroleum side.
Yeah, our brand is Chestnut Market. That's the flag we run for our convenience stores. We generally have mobiles and shells in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. We have about 240. We have about 75 number changes between 75 and 80 throughout the year, company operated stores. We were started about 40 years ago by Mickey Jamal. He's currently the CEO, and his 3 brothers, Sal, Sam, and Cal. And over the course of time, through acquisitions and markets, we got to the total of 240, and we hope to double in size for our C stores over the next 5 years.
Perfect. Yeah, I think, great information about the two companies. I think, for our audience, right? I mean, you guys are in some of the toughest markets in the U.S. from a regulatory standpoint, right? We were talking about California, the different regulations there. You're talking about New York State. So, a lot of those can be relatable across the rest of the respective states. So certainly we'll look forward to your guys' input about, what you're dealing with in those respected areas. Okay. So, so just a little bit about the Titan platform, right? We're going to be talking a lot about the solution and how, both of your companies have actually leveraged that, over the last number of years to kind of better manage your business and grow your business. As an overall platform, we offer more than just compliance and maintenance, which is what is kind of the topic of our conversations today. But we dive into the fuel analytics as well as the supply and logistics side as well. So really anything from the loading rack all the way through to your customers' cars, we have solutions that help you kind of manage that. And we do this. We've been doing this since, before 2012. And we're also a global company. So we do this for over 800 clients, kind of across the globe. So our discussion, like we said, today is really, rooted around the compliance aspects, and the maintenance aspects and how customers, that customer journey, to leverage those segments of our solutions. Okay. And again, the agenda, just to kind of highlight, we're really looking at taking you guys on a journey here. We really want to have Andrew and Joe kind of talk about, what brought them to look for a technology solution and ultimately landing on Titan Cloud as their partner. Kind of the challenges that you guys kind of faced prior to implementation, how you guys got internal buy-in for the solution, and then what solutions you actually leverage with Titan today, like how those solutions give you visibility, how you're actually leveraging that platform view that we talk so frequently about. But then leading in kind of the future, like where do you guys see the industry going from a compliance and maintenance aspect, and how do you view leveraging the technology to help kind of meet those future challenges, and helping your companies kind of succeed in that. And like we mentioned earlier, we'll spend a lot of time on the Q&A side of things for it. So, so certainly, like we mentioned earlier, I know there were some people joining a little bit later, but feel free to leverage the chat as we're going through these, and Joe and Andrew are providing input to a lot of the questions. This format will be a little bit different than past webinars that we've done. We're going to kind of close the screen in a little bit. Our faces are going to be broader screen here, and we're just going to talk about these aspects and kind of lead you on the journey there. And then, hopefully, you'll get a lot of information, and, insights about how these companies have kind of addressed the challenges that they've had historically here. So let's move into the broader segment of the webinar here. And I guess if, Joe and Andrew, I think it's important, and it's probably very insightful if you guys could, kind of share for the audience here your journey, like prior to implementing technology, like, what types of solutions did you have in place to kind of manage compliance and maintenance? And what challenges was that those technology stacks, what were they presenting to you guys to show you that, hey, we need to look at some type of technology to help us kind of better manage our solutions. So maybe we start off with Andrew, and you can kind of share, where you came from and what core challenges you guys faced prior to implementing technology.
Yeah. So pretty much prior to us adopting Titan, we were basically tracking everything on spreadsheets, as is probably most common. Obviously that comes its own challenges of just Excel, and it's not really meant to be a database of data, and also just trying to track many different types of data, not just dates, but, facility ID numbers, addresses, fuel system data, tank status. There's just so many fields of data that we were trying to track on a spreadsheet, and it just made it very difficult to really manage that data effectively. And also sharing that data and having multiple people update data started to become a problem as we continue to grow. And then for ATG polling, we were doing polling kind of manually for release detection, so sensor status, CSLD. We were using just a basic program internally on our network to hold specific ATGs where we were required to collect that data. So again, a very manual process that we would have to perform every month, review it every month for each site. And so it's definitely, as we continued to grow, we knew that it was not going to be sustainable with the amount of volume of data that we'd have to collect.
So if I'm hearing correctly, like your core challenge was really around scalability of your organization, right? Your growth company, you're adding new stores in, and then you had a segment of disconnected systems that really didn't allow you to kind of cross-functionally communicate and have the visibility you needed to address issues and kind of better grow your business. Is that kind of a good summary of what where you guys were at?
Yeah, with the rapid growth that we experienced kind of shortly after I started in 2016, we knew we needed a solution to scale with the rapid growth.
Sure. Okay. And you the majority of the stuff you're talking about was on the compliance side. What solutions did you have? Did you have a maintenance system, like a work order system in place, or were you guys managing that through emails and or other systems?
I believe around the same time we did adopt ServiceNow as a platform to manage our maintenance with the company.
So you had a solution there. It was just about tying everything over. And Joe, on your side, can you kind of help us share your journey?
Yeah, similar to what Andrew said. We had a lot of manual entries, we still have a binder because it's required at the facilities by the regulators, but a lot of checklists, a lot of manual work, a lot of manual inspections. Inventory reconciliation was through Excel spreadsheets that existed on computers at the locations. So what we did in general, as far as compliance, we do have the connectivity with the beta routes. We do have the e-docking of the leak detection. We do have the dashboard that allows us to manage through exception, which was important. Because as you scale up, you can only cover so much ground in a car or over the phone or by email. And, really what it comes down to is using the dash, having the connectivity, identifying that you have maybe 250 locations, but 6 are out of tolerance, and you have 3 alarms that you need to deal with today, right? And that was the main reason why we evolved from manual entry, stations that kind of operated individually as part of the corporation, into like connected aggregation of data.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, I always think back, and not to age myself a little bit, but, early on, right, you were just managing maybe 3 types of release detections for, 3 tanks that are, looking at CSLD results, and you're having some people test it. Nowadays, you're managing up to 40, 50, 60. If you're a larger location, you could be up to a couple hundred sensors that are there that makes it almost impossible to effectively catch all the different issues that could occur within a system.
Yeah, that's true. And having the ability to have, for instance, a pressure line leak detector shutdown alarm broadcasted to key individuals to their email so that they can respond real time in the compliance department, versus a manager who may or may not be doing something different, have different priorities, which is what they should be doing, selling. Definitely, food and beverages and everything else we do in the convenience store. So we can respond, we can connect through the cloud-based platform right directly to the Vita root, diagnose it, sometimes fix it. And then if we can't, we can dispatch the appropriate maintenance and then follow up with that too to make sure the alarm's off. Stuff like that really helped us scale up.
Yep, move forward. And Joe, you had mentioned during the executive conference that we had a number of weeks ago, there was a comment that you had during Andrew's presentation around so an assessment you did on the impacts of being non-compliant. I know you shared a little bit more of that with me today, but maybe if you could share a little bit with the audience here about what what that assessment did, like learning that it's a little bit more effective to be proactive and resolve the compliance issues before they become compliance issues, and add additional efforts to your teams. You mind sharing a little bit on that?
Yeah. So if, as an EHS manager, director, or whatever you are, if you take a step back and you look at your program and you look at the results of what is happening in your program, objectively, and you say, hey, we have a lot of NOVs, we have a lot of enforcement, we have a lot of lists and a lot of work to do to get these regulators off our back. And then you objectively say, hey, maybe we need to change the way we do things so we could do all of the compliance things, but not have to deal with the regulators, not have to deal with the enforcement, not have to deal with the fines, and create a proactive inspection mentality. That's what I tried to do. That's what we have done at Chestnut. And, the way that we did it and the analysis that I did, it was basically, look, we have to do these things anyway, right? So something that we could do 3 or 4 minutes during a monthly inspection could take us 10 to 12 hours for a compliance person or, a manager or whomever to respond to. And then on top of that, we have to deal with legal, we have to deal with the regulators, we have to deal with emails, we have to deal with, bad feelings. We have to deal with the fact that you'll get a reputation that you're an operator that is typically non-compliant. So it's hard to indirectly quantify the value of that. But from what I can tell you now is that over the last decade, we've gone from a target to, a company that the regulators want to do an inspection on a Monday morning or a Friday afternoon because, hey, they'll give us a call and they'll say, hey, you guys are easy. We'll send all of our information through email even before they get there through the Titan cloud base. You can download whatever records that you need. Then we shake hands and they're gone. And we've had, I think, almost 400 inspections over the last 4 or 5 years without any sort of penalties.
That's awesome.
And that's leveraging technology. That's getting ahead of the curve and doing things that you're obligated to do anyway.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you noted during our conversation, Joe, is that the regulators kind of refer you guys as kind of best in class for the areas that you guys operate in, right? And that was a journey for you, right? Because when you first started out, you weren't necessarily there, but it's a process, right? You didn't start out there, but it's been a building block to get you that point.
Yeah, we had always done the best we could, and that's open, honest, and here's everything that we have. But really, until you have like a scalable model for compliance, you run into different things at different times that create violations that create a lot of effort to deal with.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about a lot of that and what you guys are seeing currently in just a bit there. But just shifting over to Andrew here for a second. Andrew, on the Jackson side, have you guys kind of done similar analysis to get you to the point where you've decided to launch technology?
I mean, unfortunately, we haven't really done any specific analysis, but it really just came down to efficiency for how many people we had, in the department, which has always been 2 people in the environmental department running all the compliance management. So it really just boiled down to we needed something that was more efficient. And to kind of piggyback off what Joe mentioned with regulators, we've always had a very good relationship with regulators. And, even before adopting technology, we would pre-send all compliance documentation to them. We try to make their job as easy as possible. And, again, like Joe's comment, they would schedule us on Mondays or Fridays because they knew our sites would be easy and they could just, get it done in an hour instead of spending an hour just going through paperwork on site. But that, going through manual paperwork and commingling all that stuff for inspections took a lot of time. And that's where Titan really helped speed that process up significantly. To the point where you can easily set up an inspection documentation in, 15, 20 minutes tops. And that really helps us. We're actually seen such a heightened frequency of inspections.
And I guess a good note to the industry, right? If your inspections are scheduled at a state on Monday and Friday, you're probably doing pretty good. If they're scheduling them all during the middle part of the week, you might want to just kind of take a look at what you're doing. Well, guys, let's kind of shift over a little bit, and maybe let's talk a little bit about the solutions that you guys are using currently, like what you guys have adopted internally with Titan. So, Andrew, we'll start off on your as well. Like what solutions on the Titan side are you guys currently using?
So primarily we're using the compliance management, which essentially entails managing all aspects of our environmental compliance. So we have all of our ATGs connected to Titan. They pull all of the release detection information, and it gets automatically put into Titan into release detection reports. We have all of our testing dates tracked within Titan. We have permitting that we're tracking within Titan. And then we also recently started having Titan monitor and dispatch for ATG alarms. It's something that has been a challenge in the past of just not missing alarms. And it's something that when we acquired Stork in California was crucial due to the strict regulatory requirements in that state, that we needed someone to constantly monitor and dispatch for alarms, without any basically lapse or gaps of coverage. And Titan's been able to take that on for us and basically make it a lot more manageable.
Yeah, I guess with two people and with California, you're basically 24/7, 365 monitoring, right? So you guys working all the time, having a little bit of support was helpful. And I think, Andrew, one of the differences that we'll talk about here, right, is that we're talking about the maintenance solution as well. You mentioned you're using Service Channel, and then Joe, I know you'll talk about kind of the Titan maintenance solution, but the fact that you really don't need to utilize all of our solutions. We have tie-ins and APIs that allow you to kind of automate those aspects and basically streamline. Like I think that partnership and that goal is to help reduce the number of touch points, help you do a lot more with less, kind of across your teams, which is kind of evident on your side, Andrew, where you've grown your business pretty substantially, but you've maintained the same staffing that you had since you started the program, right?
Yeah.
All right. How about on your side, Joe? What solutions are you guys utilizing on the Titan side?
We use the core compliance like Andrew does. We use a couple of things beyond what he had said. We use the video connectivity and inventory reconciliation, and we use the maintenance, like you said, Brent. We also use the advanced facility inspection module, which allows us to, through a tablet or a phone connection, have our inspectors answer certain questions, have them scored, have it weighted, and then have the ability to track where the non-compliance is based on scoring. They can embed pictures with the reports. And I collaborated with Titan on that about a decade or 12 years ago, when operator trading first came out, and there were all these different inspections that had to be done by certain people. And that created another paperwork trail that we eventually put into the technology, which e-docs it and retains it for our records.
Yes, it's a facility that's primarily automating that monthly visual inspection process and the periodic inspection process for you.
Yes.
And I think you guys are also using the maintenance module, right? So you're maintaining that in the system also.
Yeah, we maintain our maintenance in the system. We've done it historically through Titan for a very long time. And we started to build out our compliance also. Initially, we used the eDoc and the maintenance program through Titan. And eventually, we started to use facility information. We got all of our tanks and all of our lines and all of our information into that system, and then use it for the compliance. And having the two together allows a level of transparency and communication from the executive side, from the admin side to the store, to figure out how many times there was a call for this particular sensor at this location, or if there's water in a sump, is it a recurring issue? What's been done in the past? And we do that based on notes that are taken in the maintenance dispatch system by the vendors or by the person that's in charge of that particular workflow.
Yeah. So that having it all in one system gives you don't have the data silos you might see if it's kind of separated, gives you a lot more transparency and reporting functionality.
Yeah, it does. One login, one click for the store, one source. And I mean, in general, the simpler you can make a process, the more compliant with the process the end user will be.
Well, perfect. I appreciate you guys providing input on that. I do want to step back. There was another question that I wanted to ask kind of on the pre-adoption of technology. And it's really around like, how did you guys kind of garner support internally to actually be able to implement Titan or technology, right? Because I think, I meet with a lot of people day in and day out where they're struggling with getting kind of internal support, getting them to initialize the company to actually purchase additional software, add additional solutions. So maybe if you guys could share, if you have any insights about what you guys did to have it be successful on your side, where you could roll out the solutions. And maybe we'll start on your side, Joe, and then we'll transition over to Andrew.
It's really hard to put a dollar value on a proactive approach, because effectively what you're saying is we're doing better because we're not getting fines. And it's hard to get an understanding of, what the fines could or would be when you're not getting them anymore. But, when we first started, because we got really big, really fast, we doubled in size 2 times in a year. We had increased regulatory pressures. We had the EPA and the DEC and the DEP and all the acronyms saying, hey, you're here, you're bigger now. We're going to target you specifically. And rather than get into that exchange with all the regulators, we just decided, hey, let's prove that we can do it better than they could. Let's be more on top of our issues than they would be. Let's understand the rules better than they do. And let's fix everything before they get there. And I did a calculation based on total man hours and expenses and fines and lawyers. I mean, attorneys, $10,000 just for a retainer for any and everything that they have to do. So, you do that calculation, you do the cost of a proactive program, and eventually you can manipulate the numbers so that there is a significant cost savings to that.
Absolutely. And I guess as an organization, you guys saw value to kind of move to a more proactive approach and a more compliant approach, rather than having kind of that bullseye on your back or that bad reputation that you might have had with the regulators prior to implementation.
Yeah. And be clear. I mean, everybody has a bad reputation with regulators. There's no regulator that says, hey, I love the oil industry. Right. So, in having it was just more like they didn't know us. Right. And they weren't comfortable with us. So what they decided to do is be the enforcer. Now we kind of have a friendly, amicable relationship with them, which is much better. And it does save a lot on the indirect effects of enforcement, indirect effects of that unknown. I mean, even sleeping at night is a little bit easier when you don't have an army of regulators coming after you to shut down all of your gas stations.
Yep. No, absolutely. Absolutely great. How about on your side then, Drew? What was the way you kind of garnered approval to kind of get technology implemented?
I mean, for us, it was pretty straightforward. It was basically with the rapid growth we had, it was pretty much boiled down to either we hire a lot more people or we leverage technology to make the processes more efficient with less people. And obviously, hiring people has its risk. If you could even find people who want to work, which is certainly a challenge nowadays. So we opted to leverage technology to be able to make all the processes more efficient. And it's basically enabled us to manage over 400 locations in 8 different states with 2 people.
No, that's perfect. And we hear that all the time, right? Is that companies, especially growth companies, right? They're growing into new areas. So it's important to have, that visibility and to partner with companies can help you grow successfully at that. Well, I know we've got a little bit more time left. We want to kind of get through the future state here. And I know, one of the things that I heard from really you guys, as well as everybody else on our panel, for the executive circle event, was that, you guys were seeing a lot more regulatory presence and more inspections, more violations for some of the inspections that you're having kind of across the country now. And so if you guys could kind of share with us, like, what are you seeing within the industry now, currently that you guys are having to deal with over the next 3 to 5 years? What do you kind of see the future kind of holding for, both on the maintenance and the compliance side? I think that would be very useful. And then, we'll kind of end things here and kind of jump into the Q&A in just a few minutes.
Yeah. So we're definitely seeing a much heavier regulatory oversight at all of our sites. Obviously, maybe about the states that we're seeing increased inspection frequency, whereas in the past they might have inspected every year, haven't inspected. So we are seeing a lot more of that. We're also seeing more enforcement action, minor issues that in the past were found, and you were allowed to correct if you're no longer really allowed to correct without getting penalized via some type of fine. So it's really made the inspections a lot more kind of critical to prepare for them, to make sure everything's good. It's, we implement pre-inspections prior to all state inspections that we do, just to make sure that we're catching anything obvious. So really, that's what I'm seeing in the short term. And also just availability of testers, of car, mobile delays, of repairs, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
In terms of future 3 to 5 years, I think we're going to see a pretty big drive from the insurance industry that's going to literally almost be the regular regulators of USG systems. As insurance becomes more difficult to get, they're really going to drive upgrades of single wall tanks, single wall components. We might also see states adopt single wall tank, end dates like California recently just did. And at the end of this year, we may see that adopted from other states.
That's it. That's very interesting. And the insurance aspect of it, right? I think states that have sunset their funds, their remediation funds, right? You have seen kind of a driving factor with increased premiums, more challenges on getting insured for those locations. So that's great input. How about on the Chestnut Market side, Jim?
Yeah, first to follow up on what Andrew was saying about insurance. I mean, what he just said, there aren't a whole lot of states that have regulatory deadlines to remove single wall tanks. So you have an aging infrastructure, and it's inevitable that those tanks are going to have an issue, whatever that is. So that's a great point, Andrew. And in the insurance premiums going up, that's a great point. So, what I've seen over the last 25 years is every time the regulating body sets a standard, they give private industry a certain amount of time to get to it. And once you finally almost get there, they raise the bar, right? So, first steel tanks were bad. So everybody got their steel tanks out and they put fiberglass in. And then next, single wall tanks need to be regulated in a way that they need to be regulated out of use. So now everything's double walled, and then you have to increase sensors, and then you have to increase, you have to implement shutdowns, how you have air regulations that you have to buy. I mean, in California, they're the most stringent. So I guess what I'm saying is that the cost of running a gas station on the environmental side is going to increase because of the compliance requirements, which will increase the maintenance requirements for the systems to just keep them compliant with whatever current regulation that there is. So, and I think that's going to be true 3 years, 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah. And I think that's very fair, Joe. I think one of the things we heard in the gentleman that gave the Opus presentation where he showed year over year increases in maintenance costs, right? I think, what he said, I think 10 to 15% increases year over year. And I think that's been consistent for the last, 3 to 5 years, and the foreseeable future, those costs will continue to go up. I think, Andrew, you mentioned like, what are tariffs actually going to do on the impact for this longer term? I think that's all, yet to be seen or to kind of understand the impacts. But one of the things that I see kind of consistently is everybody's looking for ways to minimize costs, to optimize their operations so they're doing it the most cost effective manner possible. And certainly that's what we're seeing with with the adoption of technology. Allows you to do it with less, allows you to get better visibility to all costs kind of associated with those. So that kind of keeps you in line and gives you the ability to be able to further drive your business going forward. So Joe, maybe I cut you off a little bit earlier there. Was there anything else you wanted to share on that side?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think to piggyback off what you just said, also, we use this for compliance purposes, but we also have other divisions and other departments that use the technology for their purposes, right? So when it comes to inventory in our tanks, we have our dispatching use the inventory. So it's not just they use the inventory levels to predict when the next delivery should occur.
Sure.
So, it's not just cost savings in compliance, it's cost savings across several different departments in our company.
So let's kind of tie over into the Q&A side. We'll let Connor, we'll start pushing some stuff in here. I'll read them out here, and then we'll pass it over to you guys to provide some input in the Q&A. So the first question here is what advice would you offer to those who are still managing compliance kind of and maintenance on a very manual process where you guys actually started off before?
Yeah, sure. So success in compliance only happens when you can establish metrics. So if you can somehow establish metrics manually and track your different issues, then that would be my advice, is just not to look at one individual thing. Look at all the things. Look at the aggregate of those things and look at the results of, whatever manual compliance and maintenance process you're using, and then try to predict what the next thing that you should do or the next upgrade that you should have.
It's one thing with the manual process. It's very difficult to ensure kind of data integrity, to just make sure that, you're not missing anything. First, it's leveraging a technology standpoint where you have everything in one area, all the data is in one area. It's much easier to manage, and you don't have to kind of second guess yourself if you're missing something or not.
And I think I'll chime in here as well while Connor's bringing up the next question. But I think, we've kind of talked about it being a journey, right? I think the other challenge is that from a regulatory side, we're not talking about it getting any easier. We're talking about the regulatory community evolving and, inspecting more, finding more issues. We've talked about early on the challenges because complexity of the number of components you're now managing, the number of tests, the number of release detection components. It becomes a lot more complex. So, it's almost a gamble when you're doing it on a manual basis to say, am I catching everything? And, hopefully the state doesn't find it if I'm missing something when they come out there, right? So the beauty of automation is to be able to help you kind of systematically bring up the exceptions rather than you having to touch all of the different items and try to, find the needle in the haystack to find the issues that you're having, right? Because those for me, when I was in that role, that's what was keeping me up at night, right? Where what was I missing within the operation? So next question, if you had to summarize the biggest long-term value of Titan, what do you think that would be for your organization?
I think for us, the biggest long-term value for us going to Titan is just the ability to manage so many sites through the scalability through our growth with just so few people. We've when I started, our department was only 2 people, and today it's still only 2 people. And, we're not tapped out. We can still, as we continue to grow, Titan enables us to still manage all of these stores without basically over-tapping our capabilities.
Yeah, the connectivity, the transparency to every user. And the most important thing would be able to manage by exception. Find the reds, find the issues quickly, dial into them and correct them.
Yeah, it is. Just from my input, I mean, one of my passions is just the data, right? Because I think you talk about it, Joe and Andrew. I think in some of our conversations, the same aspect, right, is that as an overall platform, you're bringing data together from all these other systems, which companies historically haven't had, very easy access to, and so what we see is now companies are leveraging that data in ways that they never could leverage it before. And those are possibilities to better drive your businesses and learn more about what's driving up your operational costs, what's impacting your customers, what's helping you kind of increase revenue and what's not, right? So I think, the data aspect can be pretty tremendous in how you leverage it. And that's the latter half of that optimization journey, right? As where they really never end, right? You're constantly learning about how to improve your organization. So I know, guys, we're at time. We probably have a few more questions that are out there, but we're going to kind of cut it off here just to respect everybody's time. And then, if there's other questions that are out there, we can certainly respond back as a broader group. But again, Andrew and Joe, thank you guys very much for your time here. Very insightful on everything you guys shared. And we appreciate your availability and taking time out of your busy day to kind of share your experiences on the solutions that are out there. So thanks again. And thanks everyone for your participation. Have a great day.